Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another small carrier market update powered by Freightways Playbook. Today's September the 8th, so I'm excited to share another update with you. Again, the biggest information that we can have is the accessibility of information, but most importantly, the application behind the information. So today I'm going to give you a few updates that will give you a little bit of guidance this week with the hope that you take some of these things and help power your business forward as we go through these troublesome times. So I want to go ahead and get started right on into it in the fashion that we always do. Very first part, let's go to the outbound tender rejections. One of the things that you'll see is obviously that the market is still flooded as we know, but tender rejections have dropped off again. We're at 5.42 now, which is considerably lower than what we were trending through, really honestly, through July through August. We started seeing that tail end off of the back end of August and started seeing rejections start to kind of decline significantly from that point. But we haven't seen 542 significantly and for I would say for an extended period since about April, May, late April, kind of May, June area. So really soft. No pressure on rates expected. Like, right, I don't expect anything differently in the next week or so to really kind of just change things. And I say the next week or so because I'm being very cautious, because obviously things can change at the drop of a hat. We saw when COVID hit, how different things become. So all it takes is just a significant event to change things and to be one of those, hey, I told you so moments. But I'd rather tell you now that, don't expect a big boom in rates this week. The deal is that until we can get this number up, honestly, you're in kind of take it what you can get type environment. So be very cautious with it. And the other thing that kind of drove into this, man, we saw a plummet in overall volumes, right? We had a volume drop of almost 1,600 points in a week. Really? I'm talking about falling off a cliff is what it really felt like from a volume standpoint. So this is where these things come hand in hand, right? You got volumes that drive the demand for trucks, and you got tender rejections that really kind of drive the sentiment on how contract carriers feel about the marketplace. So if contract carriers were at 6.12 last week and now we're at 5.42, we were at 10.6 last week in terms of overall volume. Now we're down at about 1,600 points less. That's a lowered sentiment. Again, those are things that don't make you feel better when it comes to, hey, I feel like rates are going to go up, and that's just not the case. So we got less freight on the board, more competition for what's left. Obviously, you know what that means. That's a heavier downward pressure on overall spot rates. So I wouldn't be surprised to see our NTI start to drop in the next upcoming weeks. I'm not going to bank on it just yet, but I would just tell you that that's where we're kind of trending in that direction. So if you're wondering why loads are the way they've been this week, well, this kind of answers that for you. When I look at the NTI, it held steady last week, right? We're at a 233. I think the week before we were at 231. So kind of around the same. We haven't seen much movement. We're still up from mid-August, where we're at that 228, 229 mark. But it's nothing to get excited over right now. As you can see, we only had a couple of peaks this year where it really kind of tailed out. One being in June, one being in July, early off in February. But over than that, over the time of the last 8-9 months, we really haven't seen anything truly exciting for a sustained period of time. I just feel neutral. Honestly, that's kind of where we feel like we're at. We're kind of sitting in neutral in a holding pattern for what's next. Now, the thing that I look at too, as well, I want to keep an eye on is that even though we saw a decline in overall diesel fuel, it popped back up and it showed back up on the charts this week. We had an increase of 3 cents over the last week, and it's something that I will definitely want to keep an eye on. Just as we go through into the back half of the year, it has been holding steady above 370 for several weeks now, which is a sharp increase from the 345 we saw in June. So it's definitely been a cause for concern, especially when it popped up at that 380 mark right at the end of July. You remember that? Near the end of July, we popped up over the 380s. Now we're at 373. We was over at 370 last week. So this is something that we got to keep our eyes on. Obviously, you want to keep watch of California and Northeast, because those are the areas that are going to have the higher diesel fuel pricing. I'm not going to say it's a moment to panic, but I will say that it's something that we don't need to ignore. And it's time for us to really truly dig in, revisit your fuel strategies, make sure you're paying close attention to that. This map I was waiting for over last week. Remember last week when I shared you the spot rate map last week, and we saw it last week. We just came out of the holiday, and this whole thing was blue. I mean, it was Papa Smurf blue. But as you can see, you're starting to tail back off into normalcy as capacity starts coming back online and things kind of settle out. Now, you do have some pockets that are still deep blue, like way in the Northeast, some mid-Atlantic stuff there, near that Washington, near that Wisconsin, Minnesota area, Michigan. You're still seeing some tight tight capacity, along with some good spot rate changes as far as the overall last 4 days. So get it while you can, because these are the areas that are showcasing that they're in a better place than others. Now, obviously, the mid part of the country, Texas, kind of shaky. Southern California, those areas right there don't look the greatest when it comes down to it in terms of putting your trucks there. You're in Southern California heading out to like the Houston area, probably not going to see much on both sides. You're going to see spot rate changes in the opposite direction on both sides. But overall, these are something that I want you to be prepared for this week. Take a picture. Make sure you screenshot this. Make sure that you have this in your hand when you're booking freight this week. I want you to make sure that you have a strategy behind you. And this is one way to have that. For my reefer folks, I wanted to make sure I kept that promise that I was continuing to keep you guys and ladies. I wanted to keep you informed as well with the same information. So tender rejection and reefers, we're at 12.93, which is obviously it's better, much better than dry van. Honestly, it's almost 3 times as good in terms of tender rejections. But they slid a little bit this week, right? So even though you got more kick on the reefer side, especially when we go into the back half of the holiday side, I feel better about reefers. Compared to the early summer, it's still trending up in the right direction. Much better direction from May. If you look back at May, right? Go back to March, April, May. Reefer's sitting a whole lot better now than any other commodity with its dry vans included. Just from a trend standpoint, right? So there's some tightening there. There's a slight pull back, but I don't know. We're going to keep an eye on it. Could be a little bit of cooling after Labor Day, which could be part of it, but we'll see. I'll keep you posted. You know, I do this every week. So next week we'll talk about it again. Reefer truckload continues to climb, right?
The super successful people are part of the 1%. They're part of that very, very small percentage. That's why I don't want you to do things that everybody's doing. I want you to do the small things that nobody else is doing. The people that are most successful in this business treat it like it's the only thing that's bringing income into their household. If you do that, then you'll have the same results. The people that I see most successful in this business operate like they have no other chance. They have nothing else going. This is the only breadwinner that they have in play. I'm Adam Wingfield, and this is the Freight Waste Playbook.
You had 263 on the NTI. They're holding steady. You know, obviously we dipped down near 250 around mid-August. July, we peaked up there at the 270 mark, and we sat there for a while until August kind of hit, and it looks like it's just climbing back over that last month. I want to keep an eye on that. And I think that it's going to be I think that we're going to probably be steady around this until we get closer to that holiday surge, that produce surge towards the end of October-ish, you know, kind of around in that area, mid-October, late October. Start seeing different demand on that side. Keep an eye out for it during that period of time. It's going to be some choppiness, I expect. You know, nothing crazy, but I do expect us to have a better feel on terms of what the sentiment is on the reefer side than I do on the dry van. So definitely something to keep an eye on. This chart here was one of the things that I was looking forward to seeing. Again, I keep seeing, man, I see this stuff going across social media, man, where you got to be careful what you see, you know, as far as information is concerned. You know, obviously understanding what the true dynamics and exactly what kind of, obviously the terminology and things is very, very important. But at the end of the day, we lost 274 total authorities so far. Our net change is negative 274. So remember, 0 is our ground zero. As you see on this chart here, ground zero is on this chart. Everything above ground zero means that period we gain carriers, and everything below ground zero is where we lost carriers. So as you can see from October to September, August to September, you saw we lost 274. So it's definitely something to keep watching. We spiked 274 out last week. Obviously, this information is not the most updated information due to the FMCSA's part of it, but this is the biggest red number we've seen in a couple of weeks, right? So we haven't seen this red number this large in quite some time. I'm not going to say quite some time. It's probably about 4 weeks out. We've seen that, right? Mid-August is when we saw it, but this trend's mostly been sideways, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Q4 is when most of your, a large portion of your seasonal exits happen is during that time of the year. So I definitely want to keep our eyes out on it. We'll see what happens. We don't know if this is probably a correlation of other things that are taking place in the marketplace, but again, it's something to keep an eye out for. Next thing I look at is the inbound ocean volume, right? So we talked about that last week. In the prior week, we talked about what are tariffs are doing. How are tariffs impacting volume? How is that tariff volume impacting small carriers? So as a small carrier, you got to keep an eye out on your ocean inbound volume. And this is ocean inbound volume. As you can see, we climbed just a little bit, right? So it's cool. Now listen, it bumped up slightly, but it's well below where we were in July, right? So this thing is starting, and this ocean volume turns into your overall spot volume. Don't be a fool and think it doesn't. So this is where your spot volume is going to come from. A lot of it comes from it, not all of it, but you're going to get a significant amount of volume that comes from this. And as this ebbs and flows, so does that overall net volume that you're going to see in terms of overall truckload volume. Peak season is a little behind us. I don't think these retailers are stocking heavy just based on the inventory levels that we're seeing and then also what they're ordering. So in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think it's going to kind of have a continuous impact on overall spot rates. This is why I tell you that this is important for you to have an idea and a finger on the pulse at all times when it comes down to it. It's a leading indicator, right? So this is not something that I'm talking to you that has happened. This is telling you what is going to happen over the next 3-4 weeks. So over the next 3-4 weeks, if you look at where we are, if you're looking for a spike in overall demand, a spike in overall freight volume, it's not coming from the ports. I can tell you that right now. So that's one of the things that I wanted to keep you up to speed on. Looking forward to kind of seeing this stuff as it takes place next week. Appreciate you tapping in this week and getting an idea on what we're doing. This information is nothing but information if you're not going to apply it. Remember, I'm not here to just report the news. I'm here to give you solutions to help you get better and run your operations better. So if there's anything that myself or the Playbook team can do, if there's any other charts that you want to see differently, send us a message. Make sure you drop a comment, and we'll see you on next week. You take care and have a great week.